There is a quiet moment in all of our lives. It is when we are alone, perhaps lying in bed before falling asleep, and a strange question crosses our minds. Who am I when no one is looking? The answer takes time. Sometimes it does not even come. What happens is that we spend so much time being what others expect us to be that we forget what lies beneath that performance. We build versions of ourselves for every situation. The competent professional at the meeting, the responsible child at Sunday lunch, the relaxed friend at happy hour. And all these versions work so well that we start to believe they are real. But behind this social efficiency, something silent happens. A kind of tiredness that does not go away with rest. An emptiness that cannot be filled with achievements. The feeling of living a borrowed life, as if we were tenants within ourselves. It's the executive who smiles during the presentation but feels nauseous in the stomach. It's the mother who shows control but cries in the shower. It's the student who seems confident but hasn't been able to sleep properly for months. All functioning perfectly on the outside, all feeling like frauds on the inside. Carl Jung called this social mask a persona, a word that comes from Latin and literally means theater mask. He knew that we all wear these masks to navigate the world. The problem isn't wearing the mask. The problem is when it sticks to our faces and we forget that we can take it off. Perhaps the most silent pain of modernity is this: no longer recognizing ourselves. It's waking up every day knowing exactly what to do, how to behave, what to say, but feeling inside that it's all a carefully rehearsed performance, as if real life were happening somewhere else, with someone else. And the most disturbing thing is that this performance works. People like our performance. We are praised for our competence, our stability, our reliability. The outside world validates the mask, so why does it hurt so much inside? The answer lies in something Jung discovered while observing his patients. When we live too long through a persona, we lose touch with our essence. We no longer know what we really think, feel, or desire. We become strangers to ourselves. There is a silent tragedy unfolding. People who have achieved everything they thought they wanted, but feel they have lost themselves in the process. Individuals who have become so good at acting out their lives that they have forgotten how to truly live them. Today we will explore this painful and silent journey. We will understand how this mask is born, how it protects us, and how paradoxically it can imprison us. But above all, we will discover what happens when we have the courage to look at who we really are beneath all these layers of expectations. The first mask is born in childhood, almost always out of love. A small child realizes, without words to explain it, that being exactly who they are can cause discomfort in the adults around them. Maybe they laugh too loudly during dinner and see the disapproving looks. Maybe they cry when they are sad and hear that it's not that bad. Maybe they show anger and are called rude. Little by little, this child learns a lesson that they will carry with them for the rest of their life. Being accepted is safer than being authentic. And so the first edited version of herself is born. A version that works better in the adult world. It's not a conscious process. No child wakes up thinking, "Today I'm going to pretend to be someone else." It's more subtle than that. It's the instinctive realization that some aspects of her personality are welcome and others are not. It's the gradual learning that the love of others may come with conditions. Imagine a 5-year-old who likes to ask questions. Why is the sky blue? Why do people die? Why is daddy always tired? At first, adults find it charming. But after a few weeks of incessant questioning, the short answers begin. The sighs that I'll explain later that never come. The child does not conceptually understand what is happening, but feels in their body that their natural curiosity is disturbing. So they stop asking questions. Not because they have lost their curiosity, but because they have learned that existing in silence is more comfortable for everyone around them. And so, without ceremony, an essential part of who they are begins to be buried. At school, this lesson deepens and multiplies. Children who ask a lot of questions learn to keep quiet. Those who have difficulty with numbers discover that it is better to hide their doubts. Those who stand out too much realize that they may bother their classmates. Each environment teaches a new layer of adaptation. Jung observed that this process is not necessarily traumatic. In fact, it can be quite functional. The child who learns to read the room and adjust their behavior is developing an important social skill. They are learning that we live in a community and that we cannot always express everything we think or feel. The problem arises when this adaptation becomes too rigid. When children stop experimenting with who they are to focus only on who they should be. It's as if they develop an internal radar that is always asking, how should I behave here? What do they expect of me? Which version of myself will work best? This radar becomes so sensitive that children begin to change their personality like changing clothes. At home, they are obedient and helpful. At school, they are studious and discreet. With their grandparents, they are affectionate and polite. With their friends, they are funny and carefree. Each environment has its own specific persona, carefully calibrated to generate approval. In adolescence, this dynamic explodes in complexity. Suddenly, there are different groups with different expectations. The version that works at home can be a disaster at school. The persona that impresses teachers may be rejected by peers. The teenager finds himself forced to be an emotional juggler, switching between multiple versions of himself. It is at this stage that many young people begin to feel a kind of existential vertigo. They know how to behave in every situation, but they have lost touch with what they really think or feel about anything. It is as if they were professional actors who have memorized so many roles that they have forgotten their own voice. And at some point in this journey, something fundamental is lost. The connection with what Jung would call the true self. People stop asking themselves, what do I want? And start asking only, what do they want from me? The most painful thing is that this transformation often happens in the name of love. Parents who want well-adjusted children, teachers who value well-behaved students, social groups that prefer predictable people. No one is trying to harm the child. Everyone is trying to prepare them for a world that truly values conformity. But Jung knew that there is a hidden price in this transaction. When we learn too early that our acceptance depends on our performance, we begin to believe that our essence is not good enough, that who we naturally are needs to be corrected, edited, improved. And so, without realizing it, we begin a lifetime of internal translation. Before we speak, we think, how should I say this? Before we react, we calculate what is the expected response. Before we feel, we ask ourselves, can I allow myself to feel this? The mask that was born to protect us becomes our prison. And the most tragic thing is that many of us don't even realize we're trapped. We just feel an inexplicable tiredness, a sense that life is happening through a fog, a strange distance between who we are and what we experience. But that's only the first part of the story, because what happens when that mask solidifies and becomes our only identity is even more disturbing. There is an imperceptible moment in adulthood when the mask stops being something we put on and becomes something we are. There is no warning siren, no ceremony. It's like a clock that stops working. You only notice when you look and see that time stopped long ago. The transition is so subtle that it goes unnoticed even by those who experience it. One day you wake up and can no longer distinguish between what you genuinely feel and what you should feel, between what you really think and what is socially appropriate to think. The line has been blurred, and with it a fundamental part of the human experience, the ability to recognize your own inner voice. Jung described this phenomenon as a kind of psychological possession. The persona, which should be a flexible tool, becomes a rigid exoskeleton, like those crustaceans that grow inside their shells until they can no longer escape. The difference is that crustaceans eventually shed their shells. Modern humans have forgotten that this is possible. What makes this prison particularly cruel is that it is built with noble materials: responsibility, competence, reliability. No one questions a person who always delivers what they promise, who never disappoints, who maintains their composure in any situation. These qualities are celebrated, rewarded, admired. But behind this impeccable efficiency, something slowly slips away. Spontaneity dies first, then genuine curiosity. Next, the ability to be surprised by one's own reactions, until one day the person looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes the person looking back. The executive who rose through the ranks by always being the guy who gets things done realizes that they no longer know how to relax. They literally cannot. When they try, they feel physical anxiety, as if they were betraying some invisible contract. Their vacations become extensions of work. Their hobbies become disguised networking. Their casual conversations become opportunities to demonstrate competence. He wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about strategies. Even on weekends, his mind is processing problems that aren't even his. It's as if he has developed an allergy to idleness, a physical inability to simply exist without producing something. The problem solver persona has become a program that runs 24 hours a day, consuming all available energy. The mother who became synonymous with organization and care finds that she can no longer feel anger, even when she should. Not because she has become a peaceful person, but because anger does not fit the image she has built of herself. So she swallows her irritation, turns frustration into a smile, converts disappointment into understanding, until her body begins to somatize what her mind can no longer process. Her nights are filled with a peculiar insomnia. She can't sleep because she's always anticipating the needs of others. Even when everyone is fine, she finds problems to solve, crises to prevent, as if her identity depended on there always being something wrong that she needs to fix. And here's the part that few talk about. This rigidity is not a conscious choice. It's a protective mechanism that has become automatic, like a security system that can no longer be turned off, even when there is no longer any danger. The person wants to relax, wants to be spontaneous, wants to allow themselves to be imperfect, but simply cannot. It's as if there is an internal sensor working 24 hours a day. If you are feeling increasing discomfort when you hear this, if something inside you is stirring, don't ignore that feeling. It may be the first sign that there is still someone alive beneath the armor. Jung observed that this phase is marked by a specific type of suffering, functional emptiness. The person is functioning perfectly in all areas of life, but feels as if they are watching their own existence from afar, as if they were simultaneously the actor and the spectator of a play they did not choose to perform. The most disturbing thing is that this state can last for decades. Years go by without the person realizing that they are living on autopilot. They fulfill their roles, meet expectations, keep up appearances, but inside there is a deafening silence. A silence that is not peace, but absence. Relationships become predictable because the person can only show themselves through the lens of their persona. The husband sees only the competent wife, not the woman who doubts herself. The children know only the provider, not the man who sometimes wants to run away from everything. Friends see only the successful person, not the human being who feels lost in their own life. Dialogues become memorized scripts. How was your day? Fine. How was yours? Fine, thanks. Conversations that could last 5 minutes or 5 hours without anything substantial being said. It's as if everyone is speaking through invisible teleprompters, reciting lines they've learned throughout their entire lives. And perhaps the most painful thing is the gradual realization that the people around you are also trapped in their own armor. That conversations are encounters between characters, not between people. That smiles are professional, hugs are formal, laughter is measured. That everyone is acting but no one is living. The armor that once protected them has become their prison. And the key to getting out of it lies precisely where people are most afraid to look. In the recognition that everything they have built about themselves may be a well-told lie. There is a devastating irony in the modern human condition. We have never been so successful in achieving our goals, and we have never felt so empty when we achieve them. It is as if we have become masters at climbing mountains, but forgotten why we wanted to reach the top. People look at their lives as if they were analyzing a perfect resume. A solid career, check. Stable relationship, check. Own home, check. Children on the right track, check. Professional recognition, check. Financial situation in order, check. Everything working, everything in place, everything according to plan. So why this feeling of living someone else's life? Jung intuited something that our culture still resists accepting. Success built on a rigid persona is an empty victory. It's like winning a game whose rules you never questioned, in a competition you may never have wanted to participate in. You achieve everything you imagined would make you happy, but you discover that you no longer know what happiness is when there is no audience to applaud you. The executive who finally got the promotion he had been seeking for years feels an inexplicable melancholy the day after the announcement. He should be celebrating, but he feels like he has lost something he cannot name. The achievement, which seemed to be destiny, turns out to be just another stop on a journey with no clear direction. He sits in his new office overlooking the city, and a strange question invades his mind. What now? Because his entire identity was built around getting to this place. He was the guy who was looking for a promotion. Now that he's got it, who is he? The answer should be the successful guy. But that persona sounds hollow when there is nothing left to achieve on the immediate horizon. The mother who raised exemplary children, whom everyone praises for her dedication and competence, finds herself alone at home when they leave to live their own lives. And in that silence, a terrible question emerges. Who am I when I'm not being a mother? The answer doesn't come. Worse, she realizes she hasn't asked herself that question in decades. Her children's rooms remain tidy, like shrines to an identity that no longer exists. She walks through the house she organized perfectly for a family that is now scattered around the world, and every object is a reminder of who she used to be. But who is she now? The question echoes through the empty walls without finding an answer. This is when Jung would say that the persona has revealed its cruelest face. She didn't just hide her true self from others, she hid it from herself. Like a disguise so convincing that the wearer forgets their own face. The mask doesn't just deceive the world, it mainly deceives the wearer. There is a specific feeling that accompanies this discovery, that of having been betrayed by one's own life, as if she had followed a map that led her to the wrong place. But the map wasn't wrong. It was just taking her to the destination others had chosen, not where she really wanted to go. What makes this phase particularly distressing is that there is nothing objectively wrong. It is not possible to point to a specific area of life and say, here is the problem. The problem is more subtle and for that very reason more disturbing. It is the feeling of living a perfectly acceptable life that is not yours. Jung observed that his patients in this phase often reported strange dreams. Dreams in which they saw themselves as actors who had forgotten their lines, as drivers driving cars they didn't know how to stop, as people looking for a house they knew existed but couldn't find. The unconscious, he realized, was trying to send signals that something fundamental had been lost. The anguish manifests itself in unexpected ways. A person may cry while watching a silly movie, feel inexplicable nostalgia when listening to an old song, or be overcome by deep melancholy at moments that should be joyful. It is as if the soul is trying to remind the mind that it still exists, despite having been silenced for so long. Some try to fill this void with more achievements, more work, more responsibilities, more projects, as if the amount of activity could drown out the inner silence. Others turn to immediate pleasures, impulsive shopping, superficial relationships, subtle addictions, anything that creates a temporary feeling of being alive. But Jung knew that these attempts at filling the void are like putting a band-aid on internal bleeding. The emptiness is not a space to be filled. It is a sign that something essential has been left behind along the way. It is the soul asking to be recognized, to be heard, to be lived. The scariest moment of this phase is when you realize that you no longer know what you really like. You don't know if you like the job you chose or if you just got used to it. They don't know if they love their partner or if they've just learned to act like they do. They don't know if their opinions are their own or echoes of voices they've internalized over the years. It's like waking up in a house you've meticulously decorated, but suddenly it looks like someone else has decorated it. Everything is in place, everything works perfectly, but nothing resonates with who you feel you are inside. And it is precisely in this moment of greatest disorientation that a frightening and liberating possibility begins to emerge. Freedom does not come as a dramatic explosion. It whispers first. It is a discomfort that grows slowly, a restlessness that can no longer be ignored. Like a song playing softly in the back of your mind, reminding you of something that has been forgotten but never really died. Jung realized that the moment of rupture with the persona is rarely voluntary. Usually, life takes care of creating situations where the mask simply no longer works. A crisis, a loss, a moment of deep loneliness where there is no audience to impress. It is in these moments of helplessness that a person is forced to confront who they really are beneath all the layers. Sometimes it is an illness that forces the break. Other times it is a relationship that ends, revealing that one was loving a projection, not a real person. It may be retirement that takes away one's professional identity, or simply a Sunday morning when the silence of the house echoes too loudly to be ignored. What happens in these moments is a paradoxical experience, terrifying and liberating at the same time. It's as if the person discovers that the prison they were living in had the door always open, but they had forgotten that they could leave. The realization is both humiliating and empowering. The first step on this journey back is not to add something new to your life, but to subtract. It is to start saying no to things you have always automatically said yes to. It is to refuse invitations that don't make sense, to abandon commitments that were made only out of social obligation, to stop smiling when there is nothing to smile about. This subtraction initially causes panic, because when you stop doing everything you've always done, who are you? If you're no longer the person who always helps, the professional who always delivers, the mother who always cares, what's left? The answer is scary. You are left with yourself. And often you don't know who that person is. Jung called this process differentiation of the persona. It is not about destroying it completely, but recognizing it for what it is, a useful tool, not an identity. Like an actor who learns to distinguish between the character he plays and who he is when he leaves the stage. The challenge is that this differentiation requires courage. Courage to disappoint people who are used to the edited version. Courage to be seen as strange by those who have always known you in one way. Courage to not know all the answers, to not always have the right attitude, to be imperfect in public. But there is something magical that happens when a person finally allows themselves to exist without a script. They discover aspects of themselves that they had completely forgotten. They rediscover simple pleasures that they had abandoned because they were not appropriate for their image. They rediscover opinions that they had silenced because they were inconvenient. It's like coming home after a long trip and finding things you had forgotten you had. Oh, I really like that. Wow, I used to think that way. How could I have forgotten that this made me feel good? Reconnecting is not dramatic. It is made up of small gestures of honesty. It is saying I don't know when you really don't know, instead of inventing a competent answer. It is admitting that you're tired instead of maintaining the posture of someone who always has everything under control. It is laughing genuinely, even if it is too loud for the environment. People around you react in different ways. Some are uncomfortable with this new authenticity because it forces them to question their own masks. Others are attracted to this honesty, as if they can finally breathe in the presence of someone real. But the reaction of others becomes secondary. Because the person who is rediscovering themselves discovers something fundamental. Their approval of themselves is more important than the approval of others. It's not selfishness, it's emotional self-preservation. Jung knew that this return to the true self is not a final destination, but an ongoing process. Every day there are small choices between being authentic or performing, between responding with honesty or convenience, between existing or representing. The difference is that now the person knows they have a choice. They can use the persona when it is useful, but they don't have to live imprisoned in it. It's like having a nice suit in your closet. You can wear it when the occasion calls for it, but you don't have to sleep in it. What emerges from this process is not a perfect person, but a whole person. Someone who can be competent when necessary, but who can also be vulnerable. Who can be strong when the situation demands it, but who can also ask for help. Who can maintain professional composure, but who can also be spontaneous. And perhaps the most profound discovery is this: authenticity is not a luxury or an indulgence. It is an existential necessity. It is the only path to a life worth living. Because in the end, when all the masks come off, when all the roles are over, when all the performances are done, all that is left is you. And discovering that this is enough, that you have always been enough, is perhaps the quietest and most powerful revolution a person can experience. When was the last time you recognized yourself in the mirror without playing a role? Write it in the comments. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos. You reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit codes are ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.